down. Thrilled to be joined by Jason Wilde. And, Jason, I think you're the person to ask this question. And I believe you're working on a story about Ed Policy. But what the hell does Mark Murphy do now for the next few weeks? And how's it going, Jason?
First of all, it's good. I'm good. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled to be here. And by the way, I'd like to think of myself as Jim, Matt, and Molly's Binky, that security Binky that you guys need from time to time, much like Jared Goff and much like Jordan Love. I thought your commentary, which we played on our show today, I thought you were fantastic. I thought it was great.
Thank you. I didn't know you played it. I asked Ryan to send it, but yeah, great.
Yeah, maybe a little more aggressive than necessary, but that's on brand.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I got a tattoo somewhere that says more aggressive than necessary.
Yeah, that's very fair. So great to be with you. Thrilled to be here. Yes, I'll be honest with you. I was late to join Matt and Molly on Friday because we had this sit down with Ed Policy, and there were a bunch of us there. And then our conversations were embargoed because they couldn't have everybody do it at once. So then they had electronic media do a separate one. So just in fairness to everybody, we had to hold on to it until I think 4:00 was the witching hour. And I'll be honest with you, I really wanted to see, because Matt Schneidman of The Athletic, Rob Tomofsky of ESPN.com, and I had a conversation after we were done with the On the Record portion. And then we had pizza and people had beer. It was great.
Awesome.
And some cookies, which I was much more interested in than the beer. But we kind of talked about it, and then we had some time with Ed just off the record, kind of going back and forth, and I was able to voice my opinion on shareholders not getting anything of value from their shares, and having been a season ticket holder myself, with my grandparents having bought season tickets for the games in Milwaukee in the 1940s at State Fair Park. I got to talk to him about my kind of background. I've known him for a long time, but never talked to him in depth about that. So it was great. But we all knew what the news story was going to be coming out of it, and it's what I'm writing right now for Channel3000.com, and that is, basically confirmation that the head coach and the general manager have 2 years left on their contracts, this year and 2026. And Ed flat out said that he doesn't like having guys be in lame duck years. He thinks it's a problem. So and while he didn't rule out doing it, he made it very clear that is a kind of a last resort deal. And I know he knew when he was saying that what that means, because we all knew, in terms of the reporting group, that there's 2 years left on these deals. These are traditionally 4-year deals. They signed them in 22. They had time left on their existing deals. They're going to be up after the 26th season. And so if you don't want lame duck status, then this is a pivotal season for the head coach and the GM. And while I don't think they're on like an inferno of a hot seat, if I'm going to be the guy who's coming on your show and KBN and Homer and all the other shows that I appear on saying what a pivotal year it is for Jordan Love and for the 3 offensive linemen and the wide receivers and Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt, then I damn well better be able to admit it's a pretty pivotal season for the GM and the coach. Mm-hmm. So, if they struggle with a new president in charge, I'm very curious, do they only get 1 year added onto their contracts instead of new 4-year deals? Does he give them 4-year deals anyway? Or somehow would they move on from them both? Like, these are real questions. And I wanted to read how aggressively, kind of like you, Rob and Matt wrote it, because I'm not an alarmist. I generally try to be very kind of measured, and I did not want to come off as saying that we were on DEFCON 1 with the coach and the GM. But at the same time, I do think it's very important to acknowledge that while it's a crucial year for all these players, it's also a crucial year for each of them, and that's how I'm writing it on channel3000.com.
So, Jason, over the last 30 years, the Packers have really just been that team that's always relevant, and Mark Murphy took pride in that. Is Ed's policy going to be the same, or is he going to go all in at some point?
I'm sure he's never heard that one.
He definitely started with Ed policy and worked his way backwards to a question, by the way.
Absolutely. No, that was a real question, though.
I know, but you started with, how can I get Ed policy in, and then how do I make that a question?
Mm-hmm. We all know his game. We're familiar with his game. Look, I would say a couple things. First of all, and I just typed this sentence, actually, that Ed policy comes off as thoughtful and incisive. He does not strike me as a knee-jerk guy or a guy that's going to come in and say, hey, I'm in charge now. I want my people in charge of the football operation. I want to put my stamp on this, right? One of the hallmarks of this franchise has been its stability, right? Ron Wolf, obviously the Mike Sherman GM era was not a great idea. Mike Sherman was a pretty damn good head coach until that final season in 2005 when everything went to hell because he was stripped of the GM job. Ted came in and then drafted Favre's replacement. So, Tausch was on that team. He knows full well what a train wreck that was. But then we had Mike McCarthy here for, 12 years plus 12 games? And then now Matt LaFleur is going into year 7. The GMs from Ron to Ted to now GUTEY in year 8, there's been a lot of stability. And so this is a team that believes that there's value in that, and I think the organization is right. So, again, I don't want to make it sound like Ed Policy is coming in and saying there's a new sheriff in Titletown, and I'm a delicate genius who has a policy that means these guys need to be in a Super Bowl, I'm going to can them. But at the same time, I just feel like, and I hate this because, I was saying to Wooly before I came on, Rob and Matt, they certainly get feedback on social media if they choose to see it. And I know Matt does radio. But, I'm on the radio every day. I got the YouTube comments. I got the social media. I got callers. We got text on the Carbless Talking text line. I'm amazed at how many people think I'm a Jordan Love hater. Fortunately, Jordan Love doesn't think that. That's why I'm the only one he talked to at the AmFam Championship. But my point is that, I don't want to make this sound like more than it is, but at the same time, it's not nothing. And anytime there's leadership changes, like there's going to be on July 25th when Ed takes over, and look, he's running the show. He told us Mark Murphy basically, after the draft, turned it over to him. So he's on the up ramp to being the full-time, I'm the boss. But anytime there's changes, we cannot rule out any possibilities, and that is especially true when the contract situations. Because here's the thing to remember, and then I'll stop rambling. When Bob Harlan turned things over to Mark Murphy, before he did that, he signed both Ted Thompson and Mike McCarthy to contract extensions. So they had 4 years of, hey, we got a new president, but if he wants to do something different, he's going to have to eat a heck of a lot of money to do it. And this is why it's germane, and credit to Rob Domofsky for pointing this out because I had forgotten this. Mark Murphy didn't do that on his way out the door. And that is also an important point to keep in mind.
Jason, just based on your conversation that you had with Ed Policy, sorry, my mouth is still numb from going to the dentist, so I'm stuttering a little bit.
Why did you have to go to the dentist?
Sydney
had to go to the dentist today, too.
I had a cavity, so I had to get 4 Novocaine shots in my mouth, and now I'm still swollen. But...
Oh. Well, that's way worse than Sydney, who had a popcorn kernel, or husk or whatever, stuck. And, I said, her and Paula eat popcorn, every night. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, hey, floss, bro. Come on. You got to be ready for this sort of thing. It's been in there for 2 days. Anyway.
Yeah.
Wait, so she went to the dentist to get a kernel pulled out?
Yeah, it can get in your gum. Out. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ow.
Underneath the tooth, in the gum. Yeah. Yeah, so be careful out there, kids, when you're eating that popcorn.
Gross.
All right, sorry, Molly, I didn't mean to interrupt.
All good. So based on your conversation that you had with Ed Policy, do you have any inkling of what the Packers as a team need to do in order to secure LaFleur and Gutekunst spots? Like, do they need to win 2 playoff games? Do they need to get to the NFC Championship? What are you thinking?
Yeah, great question. I'm sorry for interrupting it. Look, I don't think that there's a magic formula. And look, I also think it's really important, like, if we're going to have this conversation, we have to quote him accurately on some of the good stuff that he said, right? He said of LaFleur and GUTEY and Russ Ball, who is their contract guy and their executive VP, director of football ops, you've got 3 exceptional people doing an exceptional job right now and working well together. I feel very good about all 3 of those individuals. I love them. I trust them. I respect them. I have terrific relationships, both working and personal, with them. Okay? So, again, if we're trying to do this in a fair and balanced way, we can't leave that quote out and say, "Oh, they're on the hot." It's a crucial season for them, because Ed Policy did not say, "Yeah, I don't know about these guys," or "I don't really know them all that well." I mean, he's been in the building now for 13 years, so I don't know if there's they got to win 11 games and they got to reach the divisional round for them to secure extensions. But I do think that, like, we spent so much time, and I hated this. And I still blame Dan Orlovsky more than anyone else on the regression thing. And I don't want to swear on the radio. I don't give a blank about whether you consider it a step back, a regression, not enough advancement, not enough growth, whatever you want to call it, injuries and drop passes only, and he's still star-spangled awesome. The bottom line is it is a critical year for Jordan Love. He's got to play like a franchise-level quarterback. And whatever that looks like, I don't think you can tie it just to, you got to win a playoff game or else. So I don't think it's fair to do that to Jordan. I don't think it's fair to do that to GUTEY and LaFleur. But if they do regress, let's say they go 8-9 and miss the playoffs, there are going to be conversations that maybe, a year ago, coming off of beating Dallas in Dallas and having San Francisco on the ropes, and the franchise quarterback that they went on to pay $55 million a year to, if it was like that off season now, I don't even know. I mean, they'd probably have extensions already, but they lost their last 3. They were unimpressive in Philly. You heard Matt LaFleur talking about how sloppy they were down the stretch offensively. So if they were to go 8-9, I think we'd be having a conversation that would be uncomfortable for some.
And, to that, I think every team, except for the Bears because they only won 5 games last year, every team in the North is probably going to take a few wins backwards. They're playing a tougher, on paper, division in the AFC South. Mm-hmm. But going into this year, the question du jour for ESPN Wisconsin was off of ESPN. That's where the clip of me referencing Matt LaFleur and Binky and all of that.
Your
with Jaire
little Nookie.
Yes, Nookie or Binky or whatever it is.
Is that not a terrible term, by the way? Nookie? Like, come on.
We call it a moo-moo in our house. Is that weird?
A moo-moo?
I just think of Limp Bizkit. There's a song. I did it all for the Nookie.
Yeah,
so,
I think that's a different type of Nookie.
Yeah,
I know. That's why it's weird to use it in this phrase. So that's why I don't use it like that.
I personally wouldn't use it.
Yeah.
Nookie is what leads to you needing a binky.
Yeah, exactly.
For your child.
Yes, exactly. If you do it all for the Nookie, you're going to need a binky.
Yeah.
There you go.
Your little Nookie.
But that's not what I was going to ask. So to the quarterback question, I said it was Jordan Love who has the most pressure. 1, the money. 2, the lineage in Green Bay. But also, like, if everyone goes out, and every quarterback in the NFC North goes out and throws for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns and 12 interceptions, Jordan Love's going to be looked at the worst in that group. And so, like, that's when, if you just went out and they all won 9 games and they all put up those same numbers, Jordan Love's going to have the least amount of shine after that season. That was one way I looked at it. Mm-hmm. Is that fair? Because Jared Goff, he won with, yes, now McVay's an elite play caller, so is Ben Johnson, but Jared Goff has won with multiple offenses and multiple coaches. Caleb Williams, he just has to prove that coaching was the problem last year. J.J. McCarthy has to be a caretaker this year. But Jordan Love, because of being a Packer, because of all the money he's getting paid, he kind of has to take that step into elite. If he stays at his level, which I think is good, like we know his floor, it's a good floor. I feel like, to your point, it's going to not look great for him or the Packers because he got that big contract right away.
Yeah, I agree, right? They're all at different places. While all four of them, as discussed in the roundtable, are on ESPN, Wisconsin.com, and ESPN.com, are all in places that there's some measure of have to prove something. They're all in different spots. And I thought when you articulated that, you did a really good job of it because Jared Goff has won. He has won the big one, and that's the big question that Eric Woodyard brings up. Can he actually win a Super Bowl? Because he's won a lot of games. He's coming off a best year of his career. But again, he went to a Super Bowl with another team that basically traded him away because they realized we're not going to win the big one with him. So he's got that to prove. We know J.J. McCarthy is a first-year starter. We know, obviously, Caleb Williams, his rookie season with the dysfunction down there. Now he's got his Binky, his Nookie, and it's time for him to perform at a higher level. And what you said about Love is true. You know, again, I don't think Jordan Love is a substandard quarterback. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he is a franchise quarterback, most likely, but I don't know if he's an MVP caliber quarterback, a multi-time All-Pro or Pro Bowl quarterback, a Hall of Fame quarterback, or a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Like the one line that I'm proud of when we have this debate is there's a difference between we can win with him and we win because of him. And they can win with him. I do think that they can win a Super Bowl with him at quarterback. I don't know if he's proven that they would win a Super Bowl because he's their quarterback. And maybe he'll prove that this year, and that's my frustration, is that to say that, I just don't see that as a harsh criticism. I think that is a realistic view of where he stands heading into year 3 as a starter.
Jason, with all the Jaire talk that we had leading up to these last couple weeks, is there any details what the Packers actually offered him? Because we hear talks. Was it Jaire's dad that said they basically want him to play for free? What was the deal? Is there any details
What's up
on
with
it?
that?
Yeah, what's up with that?
What's up with that? Some might say. Yeah, exactly. Look, I don't know for certain. I know what certain people have said. Again, GUTEY kind of implied that there was never a firm offer on the table. And I'm not here to judge Mr. Alexander, but I would say, his idea of what is truly an offer, I think there was a report that there was an offer on the table. Like you envision then like a stack of papers that outline the contract, and then you can either sign it with a pen sitting next to it or turn it down. I don't think it ever got to that, but I'm sure that the money they were talking about, look, the bottom line is the Packers did not want to have him on this team at his scheduled salary, and we're not going to guarantee him money based on his track record. So they were basically going to have to decide, look, are we going to commit to this guy and get burned again potentially, or are we going to move on? Because he was not restructuring his contract for them, and he wasn't restructuring it for a trade. So I'm sure that both Jaire and his dad and his agent were just frustrated that it took so damn long for him to end up exactly where he probably should have ended up from the jump, since they knew that. I will just say this, and I know you guys are late on time now because I've been babbling, but they did this with Jordy Nelson, right? They offered him a 1-year, $2 million deal in 2018, and he was willing to take it because he wanted to play with Rodgers and Devontae Adams one last year and then retire, and his wife wanted to stay here. And it was Rodgers and Adams who were like, Jordy, you can't take this. This is like 1/5 of what you're worth. It turned out to be 1/7 of what he was worth. He got $14 million from the Raiders. So, the Packers do like to make offers that are, I don't want to call them insulting, but easy to turn down, so then they have the the plausible deniability to say, hey, we made him an offer. He chose not to take it, right?
Yep.
So, again, I am just I'd be lying, Matt, if I didn't say I'm just glad that saga is over. So if his dad could leave the fatherly quotes to Christian Watson's dad, that would be great.